We are continuing our highest graded returning Bulldog series. I think we're calling it top returning Bulldogs, but it's the top players based on PFF grades from the previous season. I even found some background music from our friend over at the Dog Vent. David Wright made this for us. So shout out to him. And that's in part because we think we're going to have some background noise. Brent's neck of the woods has some fireworks happening over in his direction. The crickets may be loud enough from my Bogart backyard to be heard on this stream, but we're here to talk about the next player in a top returning series. And again, Brent, we say this every time, it's not our opinion of who the best player on Georgia is. All this is what PFF said when we combined all the grades from the season, what happened. So why don't you give that process while I bring up who we're talking about today? Yeah, because I think if you look back at our list where we started, even at 23 with Sedrick Van Pran, if you were just ranking a best or if you added most important, he would be much higher on the list. But as we start getting into these final ones, you're going to start to me getting into – there's a few, like one of the ones we're going to talk about. Two of the next 9 are going to be ones that are, higher grade and small sample size projecting kind of forward. But as you get to especially in the top 5, it's who you think it's going to be, and it's the nitty gritty. And here's one of the big boys here, one of our favorites. I've fawned over this guy. He's one of my favorite players on the team, really one of my favorite players in recent history at Georgia, Ladd McConkey. I'm going to bring up his Georgia Dogs profile and his Rivals profile so we can kind of see where he came from and where he's at now. But, Brent, when we look back at his recruitment, this is not a guy that, was highly rated. It kind of came out of nowhere. I saw his name and I thought it was funny, and so I created a Ladd McConkey Award so that I do every signing day just to find the best names in recruiting. And lo and behold, he turns out to be one of the best receivers in the country. Yes, and one of the best returning receivers to me in all of college football. And you think about the recruitment part, I think he played a lot of quarterback in high school, right? But also, recruited as a receiver, did a lot of work, I think, with Terrence Edwards down where he does the workout type stuff. Monken went and saw him. Worked him out, watched him play basketball, things like that, if I remember right. And then all of a sudden, he's like the last scholarship they give in that class. And especially given the location and given where he is and where he's from, it's just absolute phenomenal player in what you didn't think you were going to get. Give a shout out to his dad too, Benji McConkey, who he left a nice note for me at one point last season, just thanking him for talking about Ladd. And so now I call him Dad McConkey because why wouldn't you call him Dad McConkey? Yes, being the dad of Ladd McConkey. Ladd in the Rivals rankings was a 3-star out of high school, 6 foot 180 pounds for the class of 2020, North Murray High School. When you start looking at places he had offers, it was Georgia seeing something in him that others did not see. Because I think if you re-recruited him now, all the big boys would want Ladd McConkey on their team. He had a choice of Georgia, Army, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, Vandy. That's an easy choice. I think I'm going to Georgia. And he did. Let's see how that compares to what his metrics are for the Georgia Dogs profile. This is not always accurate, but it's what they list, 6 foot, 185 pounds. I'd say that's probably pretty close, but he plays bigger than what he is. I mean, look, when you're a white guy receiver, a lot of times you get labeled as possession receiver. And in fact, on really one of the first games that we saw, and we'll see this in our highlights in a second, one, they got his name wrong. They called him Lane McConkey. And then 2, they said that he was more of a dive across the middle possession receiver. And it's that ain't Ladd McConkey. And we'll show you why. There's so many just stereotypes that you could throw there. And, I'm sure what's interesting is we might be looking at him next spring when we do the draft, our draft previews for players. I mean, he could technically come out as a redshirt sophomore, but, and if he does, and whenever, and if it's next year, if it's 2 years from now, whenever it is that he comes out, if you see the term deceptive speed in a write-up on him, just ignore that person immediately.
They did not watch anything and everything that he does because there's nothing deceptive about his speed. He's just straight fast, and he's one of the fastest players on the team, and he's one of the fastest players in the SEC.
This was a game I was talking about where you kind of saw some flashes that maybe we had not heard about before. This is against Vanderbilt. Starts off at the bottom of the screen here. Tell me you can see this kind of doodling I'm doing just under the V.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. We didn't test this at all because we're super professional. Here we go. So he'll be kind of at the bottom here, and then you'll see JT Daniels connect with him.
Get him the ball
quick toss, and go.
Yep. And that's when you look at Ladd's ability in open space. We saw that there was a reception he had against UAB, making some moves in open space. But this game specifically, where he had this catch, he had another that we'll see a little bit later, the reverse that he ran for the touchdown, where it was more just straight line speed. This was kind of the coming out party for him, but just slippery,
agility.
Very quick, and also when you watch it, to me, when you watch somebody like this, oftentimes players make these juke moves back and forth and don't get anywhere. He always seems to be working in, like we'll see one later when we look at the SEC championship game. The little slippery moves are always still, for the most part, getting north and south and getting yardage. And that is an ability and a knack that not many have. That oftentimes that just ends up getting away from folks. This is, all right, I can get away from folks while also moving forward.
Two things I want to point out on this play too. You kind of see how they're stacked at the top here. This is
same
a quick decision. Yeah, it's the same at the bottom. And JT Daniels has a choice of which, you can call it a bubble if you want to, but essentially receiver here,
now screen
out front. Yeah, and then it becomes a screen there. And so my main thing is the block from, I believe it's A.D. Mitchell, awful block. And McConkey gets a first down and more. Yep. Now, I get it's Vandy. Maybe that doesn't happen against Florida or Alabama or something. But you know what? He made a play out of nothing.
And, 100%. And he's got moves, speed, quicks, everything. The second play against Vandy, where you think, all right, to me, like this second angle gives it the justice, where you're like, boom, right there. Everything that you watch the kid do just screams explosive athlete. Like he gets up quickly here. Boom, vertical was there, high points the ball. And you wouldn't think like Pickens, because of the few that he had, was looked at as the contested catch guy on the team. Outside of Pickens, Ladd led the team in contested catch percentage. He had 5 contested targets, caught 4 of them. So, those are the tough in traffic, but it's also oftentimes the jump ball type situations. And he just wins.
Really strong hands here. You'll see it kind of bounces off his hands.
Right.
Bouncing
there. Look how high he is compared to the guy. He just gets up.
Yeah, you see the height difference there. This is quite obvious where this helmet is and where this helmet is.
There's a great still shot somebody took with that one as well. But, this is going to be what we usually do these for about 15 to 20 minute range. We probably went a little longer with some of these shorter ones. This is going to be a 15 to 20 minute gush fest.
Oh, yeah.
Because
there ain't a whole lot not to like here if you're a football person.
I can't, as a coach, and like you just want this guy on your team. This is the one that I know Coach Donnan talked about this, like after the game, everybody's sort of ripping on Stetson for the underthrow here. But evidently, like Coach said, somebody's overthrown a big time in practice and, then kind of dialed it back that first one. Then later in the game, we'll see it put him on the money. But the move here, if you go back to the move, and that's just the intricacies of the receiver position. He's even has to obviously throttle down to make the catch. But right here, slow that down a little bit more. Just back to where he's right at the move. And it's one little thing that he does, that the head sell. When you take your head back like he does right there, it's not just the start and stop, because oftentimes the corners can read your hips and read the start and stop. But the head sell gets Pritchett for Auburn, gives him the Okie and gives it so fast. And that quick look, and those are little details that you see from his game that, show up and create the separation that we're looking at right there, because that's legit separation.
Well, and when you think about the other targets on the team, like McConkey's going to see one-on-one coverage. He's not going to demand to get double teamed like a George Pickens would. And so when you get one-on-one, you're inside the field, a lot of green grass, and you can do this, you can play football.
Yep. And you can play in the best league in the country and be one of the best players in that league. And actually, when you look at the SEC as a whole, he's the highest graded returning wide receiver in the SEC in terms of PFF grade.
Mm-hmm. I said, look, even if Jermaine Burton wouldn't have transferred, I think Ladd McConkey would have been the best player in the wide receiving corps for Georgia. I just think he's special. I don't think you can teach kind of the effort that he plays with, the speed that he has, and the instinct stuff. I mean, he's a really smart football player.
Yep. And this one is just, I'm just going to go run by you, and then I'm going to catch
Stetson
it.
Put that one on the money. Like he got his redemption, later in the game.
Absolute on the money, and the DB just slides off him. And, when you think about deep targets, so throws 20 yards in the air or more, caught 3 of 5 for 132 yards in this touchdown. So he does it all. Screens, caught 11 of 12 screens, had 3 touchdowns on throws behind the line of scrimmage.
This is a SEC championship game against Alabama, not the national championship.
And he makes this play right as soon as he catches the ball right there. He makes this play with one initial move and then one other cut and then the burst. But right when he catches it and gets forward, he takes that hop forward and makes Jordan Battle sort of attack him. Battle's the one with all the white things on his arms in the background, but coming up into the wrong hole. Ladd knows he's got guys coming from the inside, working from the inside, and that he's going to sort of go behind that wall. But he takes that move forward to get the safety coming forward, and then it's just, all right, my speed and my ability is better than everybody else right here.
You mentioned it earlier that a lot of receivers do the juking and they try to find the lane. Ladd McConkey, though, he doesn't have a single wasted movement or motion. And again, we're gushing over him, but look how quickly he gets north and south here.
Boom.
And says, I'm fast, I'm strong. Like, he's a built guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he's built. It's going to be hard to bring him down with an arm tackle, as proven right there.
Yep, and the subtle movements, when you're going forward and your subtle movements are that quick, there. Now, he's got the ball, obviously, on a couple running plays, four reverse type plays. When we think about 2 of them, one went for the touchdown against Vandy. One was a 15-ish yard first down explosive play against Kentucky. And then the other one was where he lost yardage in the national championship game. But this is 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, later in the game. And I'm going to go give it to this guy and go let him get, be tough and go dive and get the first down, know where the 6 are. We've seen this play all, and by the way, Fitzpatrick just don't work as always right there.
That's in the NFL, right?
Yes. But that's, hey, I'm going to give this guy the ball. He's going to go find it for me on 3rd down. And by the way, when you think about all these things we're talking about from a receiving standpoint, and then, all right, now you add in, I can give the ball in a reverse, give it to him possibly even on the jet, stuff like that, the running ability. And then what we're going to show in the next play, it's complete receiver type things. And I think he's, to me, which you look back at his snap count, you see the total on the bottom of the screen there, 348. He played 40 snaps against Auburn. That was the most he played in one game all season. I think he should play that in every game this season. Now, granted, Georgia has a stable of receivers, and they're going to rotate them. But to me, this guy just has to be on the field for that many snaps.
What I love about this play in particular, and again, we talk about Todd Monken has just like a bevy of choices to do a lot of things here. It reminds me a bit of kind of like a basketball screen where it's like you get the defense moving in one way, which they're trying to get them to move this sideline, and then just really try to exploit open space then generated up here. I will say on this particular play, kind of a hard assignment here for Marcus Rosemary-Jack Saint because he's trying to make it look like he's running a route here kind of toward the inside, but at some point he has to break that off and begin blocking and knowing when to do that. Knowing when to do that at the right time and to be able to recover. It's a hard thing to do. I think he does an okay job of it, but I guess what I'm saying is you could put Ladd McConkey in this role too. Yep. He's that kind of player.
Yep. Put him anywhere. as a coordinator. And you watch. I was able to watch some this spring. Like you watch some of the things, like even in practice, day to day, just the work ethic. He works on the craft and the detailed nature of his game. It's impressive. I'm not going to say too much negative here. And
Let's talk about his blocking.
Because if you see on the screen, 82.2 run block grade. That's in 170 run block snaps. Like, so half his snaps on the field were in the running game. That was second on the team, only to Fitzpatrick. And I think Fitzpatrick was like 82.6, 82.5, something like that. So you're talking about your best perimeter blocker as well. Not only one of your most explosive receivers, but your best perimeter blocker. And it's just about, and again, we always talk about this over and over again. Perimeter blocking is not about being the biggest and the baddest dude. It's about positioning and effort. And he got in the right position, attacked the right shoulder, and then just stayed locked and gave great effort. Stayed on.
This is one of those plays that I don't always love how PFF assesses things. Like I'll told you that to your face too. This is one where I really love how this is being assessed, because this should have been a bigger play for Georgia, because McConkey's block is fine. This is just Zamir White not trusting his hole. Like, he could have gotten probably another 4 yards had he just stayed straight, but he stopped his momentum and tried to kind of skirt to the right side of McConkey, and that was the wrong read.
And that's when you think about what the grading does, is it's looking at this individual player and, all right, are you executing what you were obviously asked to do on this play? And he was obviously asked to block, was it 22 on the play? And
watch that left hand a little bit, though. That's a tug. He didn't get called for it, but that's a tug.
And he executed it well. Bowers comes across, executes his well.
I'm trying to find something to say negatively. Probably should have tried so hard to do that.
He had 2 drops. He did have he did have 2 drops in all the 30-something targets I think that he had. So when you think about that, we can throw some negative there.
What was and you may have mentioned this earlier when I was playing video and I didn't listen as intently, but before the show, you told me that he did not have a massive sample size in a game in terms of total snaps played as compared to some other of the best receivers in the country.
Yep. Well, and even just on his own team, like A.D. Mitchell had over 40 snaps in right around 5 games. I think Ladd had 40 against Auburn. That was the most that he had. In terms of targets, the Auburn game was obviously also his most targets in the game, was 6. He had 4 against Vandy and then 4 against Michigan in the playoff game. That's it. Other than that, it was 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 2, 2. Like, so being explosive, being good, and taking advantage. PFF has a yards per route run measure that basically just looks at how, when you're on the field, how productive are you? And he's one of the highest in the SEC with that. So he's a phenomenal player to have back on this team, and it's going to be a great weapon for them offensively to go along with all the other weapons and some of which we've already talked about.
If you had to identify the 2 offensive newcomers last season that most helped Georgia win a national championship, obviously Brock Bowers is one of those. But Ladd McConkey's right there with him too. He helped make the offense so versatile. He remained healthy, which is obviously clutch. And I know Brock struggled with that a little bit, although he was out there for most everything. Tough guy. He can block. He can catch. He can run. I mean, we even saw that McConkey could do punt returns if you need him to. He can get involved in special teams as a returner. I don't necessarily think that Georgia's going to lean that way with him, but that he has that in him.
Yes, and that's a complete player. He's a complete football player, one of their best football players, especially on offense.
This was a Ladd McConkey PR show.
It was.
I'm not apologizing.
No, not one bit. Because I enjoy watching the kid play, watching him fight, watching everything that he does. Now when he screws up this coming fall, we're gonna point that out too. But for the most part,
you can. Maybe I'll. I'm on that hype train hard. I've committed.
Hey, to me, he is when you look at him, I see him eventually being a late second, third round type guy who is a straight line faster version of Hunter Renfrow, who is still having a lot of success in the league. Was at Clemson for 8 years and then is now still having a lot of success in the league for the Raiders.
I mean, there's a lot of comps you could do in NFL, like the way that Hollywood Brown gets used. He can do some of that stuff, like that's not I'm not saying that's the comp right now. He's got work to do to be able to do that, but like he's a better blocker than Hollywood is, but I don't know.
Probably more complete player.
Yeah. Look, anytime I've talked to a coach that said, you give me like 11 Ladd McConkeys, I'm going to be fine. We'll be able to win ball games with that. And that's more of just like how you approach the game and how you work. And Kirby Smart raved about it a lot. It's just, I want to be here. I really prioritize this, and this is my dream. I'm going to live it out, and I'm going to do my best on every snap. And not every player does that. And not every player loves the game and loves the team that way. I tell people this all the time. When you get to know players, you realize a lot of them didn't even watch college football before they became a college football player. And that's pretty common. I don't think this is the case with McConkey.
No, and also when you think about it from a recruiting perspective, it's not just identifying those traits, because those traits you can identify probably in all kinds of high school football players and team captains and things like that. It's identifying those traits to be combined with a skill set that can develop and evolve into an SEC caliber, high-level SEC caliber football player. And that's what's that's development. That's seeing something that others didn't see. That's just straight doing your job as a coach and a recruiter and finding players and getting the best out of them.
To wrap this kind of as we started it, in saying that this is not our opinions, this ranking that we're doing, this is PFF grades from the season, because Ladd McConkey would be a top 3 player on Georgia to me, period, among everybody. Like, I would say he's one of the 3 most important players on this football team because he can do so many things. Not saying that, like, he's vital for their success. They can't win without him kind of thing. I'm just saying your team is so much better with him. That's how highly I think of him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's up, I would say, in that. The question there becomes the value part, the most valuable part, because like somebody like Van Pran is a center, and or Broderick is left tackle. Obviously, quarterback is the most valuable position in the whole entire sport, or most important, in terms of the success of the team. They got so many receivers coming back, or for the most part, if they stay healthy, that's going to be a lot of receivers that are there. Is that the most important? But in terms of just, to me, best football, like you said, best football players, he's up there. Very much so.
This is officially reached our longest episode of the series, and I take full blame for that because it's Ladd McConkey.
Hey, we're in the top 10. We're in the top 10.
Yeah,
that's fine.
And, we'll keep doing this series. Keep following along here on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. Subscribe, if you will. It's completely free. You can check out what we're doing. We're the most popular Georgia Bulldogs channel on YouTube. Really proud of that because the channel's grown a lot, and that's because of your support. And making sure that we get to do something really cool, which is talk about Georgia Bulldogs as a part of our living. And we enjoy doing that because of what it means for the culture, what it means for the state. And we like talking about guys like Ladd McConkey. That's super cool. So keep following along with the series, and then join us over at the Dog Vent at UGAsports.com. For Brent Rollins, I'm Dayne Young. We'll see you next time as we get to number 8 on our list of top returning Bulldogs based off of PFF grades. We'll see you then.